must tell you first of all that I am not a social critic. Social critics make a lot of noise. I am a solution provider. People see Nigeria as a place that is helpless. I look at Nigeria and I see opportunities. People think it is corruption. But the main problem, we did not produce anything. I said that in my book. Of course, it has been said, if you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in the book. Put it in the book. Russia have the technological base to produce everything with all the potential. What are they doing? They are exporting commodities. They export gas. They export oil. And they gallivant. They make the biggest nuclear weapon. All that will not do it. I must tell you this. The Chinese companies that you see dominating Nigeria, the Indians, are supported by their government. Why is cement still expensive in Nigeria, for example? If you want to produce soap, for example, you need sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, and we don't have it here. Our problem is that we talk too much and do very little. The primary advantage I think foreign countries have over us is that they have had more than 50 generations of industrial manufacturing. I'm second generation, and children will be third generation if they listen. Things cannot happen unless you plan for it. That is why you see everywhere churches preaching miracle. Everywhere, everybody tries to play Bet Naija because everybody is frustrated and they are looking for easy answers.
We have with us in the studio our guest. He's a person of Dr. Caesar Osaheni Iyayi. He's the author of the ABC of How to Industrialize Nigeria. He's the CEO, Caesar Iyayi Nigeria. He's a seasoned business expert with a wealth of experience in empowering individuals and organizations. He's going to be helping us to unlock and unpack this conversation. Dr. Caesar, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, now you're going to help us now. Let's begin with this. What does 2025 hold for Nigerians, especially in the midst of this global economic meltdown, not only down to inflation and high cost of living?
Every year we end up coming up with a new program, a new resolution. The problems remain the same. I must tell you first of all that I am not a social critic. Because social critics make a lot of noise and they have no solutions. I am a solution provider. I look at Nigeria and I see opportunities. People see Nigeria as a place that is helpless. I see a lot of potentials in Nigeria. And it is up to us. So whether it's 2025, 2026, 2027, or 2023, it doesn't matter as long as we get our fundamentals right. The problem that we have, I have continued to emphasize this, and it's not sufficient. People think it is corruption. Yes, it's corruption. But the main problem is that we did not produce anything.
So we're not a producing nation?
We are a commodity nation. From oil to agricultural products, whether you want to export oil, it's a commodity. You want to export gold, it's a commodity. You want to export rubber, it's a commodity. You want to export cocoa, it is a commodity. What about the finished product? There's an exponential gap between raw material and the finished product. Let me tell you this.
Tell us.
Japan is an island nation, zero natural resource. Yet, after United States, China, the next economy is Japan. So how do they do it? They take raw materials from everywhere in the world and then they finish manufacturing products that are needed everywhere else. So they are an export-based economy. We have the ability to do that. I said that in my book. Of course, it has been said, if you want to hide anything from a black man,
put it in the book.
Put it in the book. He will not read.
So why are we not harnessing some of these potentials and some of these potentials that were highlighted in your book? the ABC of how to industrialize Nigeria. You have so many points there that people can deduce for themselves. But why is it that we are yet to get to that point, that finish point?
The fish starts to get rotting from the top. And if you are going to harness the potential of Nigeria, that general drive should come from the top. When Mao Zedong took over China, he was very particular about how to industrialize China. He knew that if he were to just base China on exporting raw materials, they wouldn't go anywhere. Look at Russia. Russia have the technological base to produce everything. I saw a picture of the electric car. Looked like what was probably put together in one small corner in Ajegule. For an economy like that, with all the potential, what are they doing? They are exporting commodities. They export gas, they export oil, and they gallivant. They make the biggest nuclear weapon. All that will not do it. The drive must come from the top. Right now, I must tell you, our economy is being controlled by Indians, Lebanese, and Chinese.
Can we ever get to a point where we'll be independent of foreign aid?
Things cannot happen unless you plan for it. That is why you see everywhere churches preaching miracle everywhere. Everybody tries to play Bet Niger because everybody is frustrated and they are looking for easy answers. There are no easy answers. People want things to happen immediately. They don't want to plan. If you want to harvest yam in October, you have to plant yam in April. People don't understand that, but they want the yam. You have to put measures in place, and those measures must come from government because the initial investment is monumental. Very few individuals will have such capacity. Those that have it, because they probably got the money through their connection with government, they have no idea what it means to run an industry. You take their money, keep it in Europe, their children drive the best cars, they fly every day. From today, here they are in America, tomorrow they are in Britain, next tomorrow they are just flying back and forth. They have no idea what to do with the money. Those that have the idea don't have access to the capital.
Okay.
And it is the duty of government. I must tell you this. The Chinese companies that you see dominating Nigeria industries, the Indians, are supported by their government.
To run businesses on the shores of our land.
Yes. Their agenda is to ensure that they produce semi-finished products here by using the industrial raw material. For example, here Dangote is producing cement. Here they are producing ties. There are other compounds and elements that you need to add in order to be able to produce cement. In order to be able to produce soap, there are some compounds and elements that you need to import.
See, from those raw materials?
Yes, cement, for example, the primary raw material is calcium, what you call marble, which we have in abundance. But then after, you need the aluminum oxide, which we can produce. And the interesting thing about manufacturing, chemistry and physics, is that by the time you are able to manufacture one product, one element, you are able to produce one element. And from there you try to produce a compound also. You end up producing other residual group of products that can have application in other products. So they complement each other. So why is cement still expensive in Nigeria, for example? Well, If you look at the transportation system, produce cement in Kogi State, you have to transport it to Benin City. You don't have train. I'm not saying that we should go and wake up tomorrow and say we must have electric train because we don't have the electricity capacity. Why don't we use our brain to think? If we cannot produce cement, if we cannot move a train with electricity the way they do in Europe and America, why can't we start from where they started from? It's not a disgrace. For example, if we have to use a steam engine, it worked before. What you want is to move goods from point A to point B. If you say, okay, that is too primitive, you can use diesel. Diesel is expensive now. But the point is that if you are committed to a program, our problem is that we talk too much and do very little.
You're talking about doing too much, talking too much and doing little. It seems the wealth of this nation is in the hands of individuals. And year in, year out, the spiritual leaders will assure the congregations that this year is going to be your year. This year will be your best year. And before you know, getting towards the end of the year, some of these persons from religious worship centers, they return back counting their losses instead of counting their gains. Now, how can we ensure that the wealth of this nation is spread evenly into the hands of everyone?
You know, people see things done and then they believe it. Nobody wants to hear this is the program you have. They want to see things happen immediately. My children, I try to convince them, why don't you do this? Before I finish my sentence, they have already told me what they think they are going to do. And they don't have the experience, but they believe they already know. So they now have to learn by making mistakes, which ought not to be. The advantages, or the primary advantage I think foreign countries have over us, is that they have had more than 50 generations of industrial manufacturing. I'm second generation. My children will be third generation if they listen. So, to ensure that we are able to learn and see how we are able to do it, it's not a matter of some pastor or some people that claim to be man of God. They just enriching themselves. Because the typical Nigerian want to get something for nothing. That is why they play Bet Nigeria and all those things. If you understand statistics, and you will know that gambling is impossible. The odds are stacked against you. It's always in favor of the house. But what do people do? They start to think, if I can just put in 500 naira a day, that won't kill me. One day I will hit the jackpot. I will become a millionaire. It happens. But what are the odds? The odds are so slim that many people end up being frustrated. And so the pastors, they know the weaknesses of human beings and they prey on it by promising them that they can do great things. Whereas they ought to let people know that we should begin by manufacturing the things that we consume. How do we arrive at that stage?
Okay.
That is where government is supposed to come in. Government is supposed to ensure you don't have to do the great things. I'm not asking you to go and spend billions of dollars that's probably not available and invest it, and then we won't see what will happen about it. But what I'm saying is that you can take the basic elements, for example. Like I'm just mentioned to you now, if you want to produce cement, you need aluminum oxide. And to produce aluminum oxide, there are some processes you have to go through. We import sodium hydroxide, and you need to react aluminum oxide with aluminum to produce aluminum oxide. And we don't have that here. If you want to produce soap, for example, you need sodium hydroxide, caustic soda. And we don't have it here. But the production is a bit simple. All you need is to have a direction that, wait a minute, instead of spending so much money to import sodium hydroxide, spend so much money to import aluminum oxide because you want to produce cement, why can't we start with this basic industry and tell the Chinese, tell the Indians, you want to produce a glass in Nigeria, you want to produce tiles in Nigeria, the active industrial raw material, you must produce it here. We don't want you to import it, because that is one of the easiest way that they can use to repatriate dollar. You don't need our naira. So when they produce all these things, there's so much naira in their hands. What do they do with it? They go to the black market to buy dollar because they want to import what we can easily produce or manufacture here. Now, try to reason it out. If you are spending, you think it's a joke, but when you start to add what one company is consuming to the other, one bag of sodium hydroxide, because I consume it a lot in my factory, is about 75,000 naira, and it's 25 kg.
Just for a bag?
Yeah, 25 kg. And what is in there really? What is in there? 4 elements put together. Water has oxygen and hydrogen, 2 elements, and then salt, sodium and chlorine. These are the 4 things you put together, and then you run a DC current through it to remove the chlorine. You capture it. That chlorine is still useful for domestic and industrial application. And what you have left is sodium hydroxide, which is caustic soda. And we are importing it. You have to ask yourself, why? I must tell you first of all that I am not a social critic. Social critics make a lot of noise. I am a solution provider. People see Nigeria as a place that is helpless. I look at Nigeria and I see opportunities. People think it is corruption. But the main problem, we did not produce anything. I said that in my book. Of course, it has been said, if you want to hide anything from a black man,
put it in the book.
Put it in the book. Russia have the technological base to produce everything with all the potential. What are they doing? They are exporting commodities. They export gas, they export oil, and they gallivant. They make the biggest nuclear weapon. All that will not do it. I must tell you this, the Chinese companies that you see dominating Nigeria, the Indians, are supported by their government. Why is cement still expensive in Nigeria, for example? If you want to produce soap, for example, you need sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, and we don't have it here. Our problem is that we talk too much and do very little. The primary advantage I think foreign countries have over us is that they have had more than 50 generations of industrial manufacturing. I'm second generation, my children will be third generation if they listen. Things cannot happen unless you plan for it. That is why you see everywhere churches preaching miracle. Everywhere, everybody tries to play Bet Naija because everybody is frustrated and they are looking for easy answers.